Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Build. We're back in the village, and this episode we're going to be hitting cottages. That's right. Now, a lot of you have said, Sjin, you've built all these cool structures for people to go and do things at, but one of the main problems with the world that you've crafted is that you haven't got enough places for people to live. I mean, we've got a whole city here, a cathedral, a castle, merchant district, Mage Tower, prison, all these marketplaces and things that people can go to and just interact, talk to their friends at. But the problem is there's nowhere for them to live. There's the slums district, which is where, the poor people live, and, they kind of scrounge for every ounce of bread. And we've got the rich district, where all the lords live, and that's great for all the lords. But what about the average Joe, Well, what we've done is we've come back to the village, and we thought, well, how about we plonk them there? It's so close to the city that they're within walking distance of all the amenities the city offers. So we've got a large area at the corner of the village that we haven't yet built in, and we're going to be plonking our cottages there. Now, if you take a look at what we've got here, we've got the windmill on the right, the farmstead in the bottom right, with the animal pens just above that. Got the barns there, sawmill, town hall, and Lord's Manor. But here we've got a large area that we're going to fill up with what I decided will be cottages here and a tavern here. So that's what we're going to get onto this episode. So let's get cracking. Now, before I put any cottages down, I realised what I wanted was to raise the land up a bit. If you empty out an area and just flatten the land completely and start building on that, well, you can make great buildings, but they'll just look wrong because, they won't look wrong even. It's just, the problem will be they won't look interesting enough because they're on flat land. Adding hills and things to build houses on makes things a bit more interesting. And because we're building a lot of cottages here, we're going to differentiate the different cottages by making the building style slightly different from each one, making some bigger, some smaller, some taller, some shorter, but also having them on different elevations. You see we've got a big hill there at the back that I've crafted. I've used World Edit with brushes, the brushes in World Edit, to craft these hills out of dirt. And then I've smoothed them off with the smooth tool, and then used just dirt blocks to fill in little bits to make it look a bit neater. And you see me here putting down the corners of the buildings with wooden logs. Now, this is just to map out in my head where things are going to be, and you'll see exactly where I'm going to plan on building things when I frame them in, as you can see there, with cobblestone. And that's how we're going to build these cottages. They're going to be kind of like cheap buildings for the denizens of the village to put together with materials that they could reasonably afford. So it's going to be a lot of wood and a lot of stone. Not stone brick, and certainly not tiled roofs like the red roofs you see in the background on the Lord's Manor. No, these guys are going to have wooden steps, which is kind of close to thatch. But it's what they're going to stick with because it's all these guys can afford. I mean, even glass is an expensive commodity in this fantasy kingdom. So you see me here going around to the various houses, lining the walls with cobblestone, you see there, and then digging out the floor to add in a layer of floorboards. Now, on some of these houses, the floorboards are slightly higher, and that's because we're copying the style that you may have seen on the sawmill building elsewhere in the village, which has kind of fence posts along the bottom layer of the building, which then kind of give the house the impression of being raised up slightly on stilts. It's also a style that we've used for a part of the Lord's Manor, and also for a part of the farmstead in the other corner. Now you see there a circular kind of, a ring that we've built out of cobblestone on the left. That's going to be another Mage Tower for the village, like kind of an alchemist's tower. We've got the Mage Tower in the kingdom, which is where all the high class, the proper serious business mages go. But every village needs its own wizard sage kind of guy just to advise and if goblins attack, throw a couple of fireballs. So that's going to be like kind of our alchemist's kind of wizard's tower for the village. And you see me there, I've plumbed in slightly the road. That's just kind of led up close to the houses, and we'll expand on that road a little bit later. But you see me here just going around the various buildings we've got here, filling them in with cobblestone, using wooden steps halfway up the building to give it an interesting feature halfway up, make it seem less kind of flat. And then I've used wooden steps for the roof. The same idea that we had with the red roof in the background you see on the Lord's Manor, that kind of peaked pyramid-y dome effect, but we're using wood instead of the nether brick steps. to give it a kind of cheaper, more affordable look. A bit more brown, a bit more, dreary. Because, well, it's not a dreary village, but these guys, they're not rich, they're not loaded, so the best they can afford, really, is wooden roofing. Now you see here, this house on the right had stilts on one part and no stilts on the other, which made the roofing slightly different. I had to kind of stagger the roof because one part was higher than the other, and in the end it looked a bit jagged there, but I'm happy with what I've come up with there. And then moving around, building by building, adding in floors, adding in wood there as a framework, because placing upside down steps can be a little bit tricky, and so what's best to do is just to ring around the edge with a block above where you want the upside down steps to be, and then run around the entire edge, putting those upside down steps on the blocks as you're underneath them. And then again, I put a little balcony here on this large building up on the hill, as you can see there, and then finish up the roof with wooden steps. Now that circle on the left isn't quite spherical, but I didn't actually look up the Minecraft circles sheet. I didn't actually use the proper circle for that. I've just mapped that in roughly because it's not something we're going to be building this episode. So for the time being, that's just a rough kind of circle to map out where we want the Mage Tower to be. Again, this is another building which had staggered stilts on one side and a shorter kind of building side on the other, which means the roof's slightly staggered. So what I've done there is decided that half of the building is going to have one floor and the other half of the building is going to have two floors. Here you see me toying with the idea of a chimney. Now this is something that I realised late into building these houses, that they needed chimneys. So I've come back to this one and added a kind of cobblestone chimney on top of the roof. It gives the roof a bit more character, splits things up a bit, and I've just used cobblestone and cobblestone steps to make the chimney because, well, wood burns and we don't want a fire on our hands. Adding in the wooden walls on the second level of this house, and leaving gaps for what will become the windows of the building. And then again, the wooden steps for the roof. And I'm using wooden half blocks on the corners to make it seem a bit more domed, the roof. Rather than straight peaked, this is supposed to be a bit more kind of smooth to give that illusion of thatch. And then finally coming around to the smallest house here on the right. Nothing especially special or different about this house, it's just the smallest. Again, I wanted to make sure that all the houses were different slightly, so you didn't get a kind of uniform, oh, he's just copy-pasted a house and put it over several times. I wanted each house to be different, every house to have a little bit of character and charm to it. And part of the charm of this one is the size. But it needed something else, so what I did do once I'd finished the roof was come back and put in a chimney, a cobblestone chimney, just like the one on the house in the middle there. And why not use the back corner to hide that chimney away? So there you have it, our houses are all roughly complete. Structurally, we've got the roofs, the walls, and the floors are all in place. We haven't got the doors yet, the windows, and we haven't decorated the area. As you can see, some of the grass still hasn't grown back from the hills that we've been terraforming. And there you see the circle for what will become the Alchemist/Mage Tower, but that's nowhere near completion yet. We haven't even started that, and we won't be starting that this episode, so that's something to look forward to next episode. Now with the houses in place, it was time to come back to the road. I wasn't sure how we were going to link this up, But what I did know is that I wanted something decorative outside the fronts of the houses. So you see me here dashing around and putting in wooden fence posts before I come around here and dig out an area for a large pond. I used wooden half blocks to make a pathway around the pond and connect it up to the stairs that lead to the doors on each house. I filled in the pond, smoothed the edges out a little bit, and then I added in more wooden steps and wooden half blocks to plumb in all the front doors to all these cottages we've just built. Now the windows in these houses, the lower levels are going to be wooden fence posts because these guys can't afford glass, but the top floors are going to have glass because, well, these guys can afford a little bit of glass. Perhaps they club together to be able to afford enough glass for them all to have glass in the tops of their windows. And you see here flowers as well. Now we were going to decorate this place with all kinds of things, but the first thing to decorate things with, I think, is flowers. I mean, they brighten the place up, red and yellow flowers, and they add a lot more. You know, when you've built something and you think to yourself, well, that looks crap, stop for a second and don't think about changing the building itself. Sometimes the building is fine, it just looks out of place because there's no decoration around the building. So what we've done is we've gone around here, added in fence posts and flowers, and as you can see, that's brightened up the area a lot and made the buildings look a bit more homely, which is what we were going for with these cottages. A nice homely setting for our villagers and farmers to live in. I added in saplings that I would come around later with bone meal to grow, and then I added a cobblestone fountain for the pond. And there we go. The cottages are built and people in our village have a place to live. You see me dash around here with the bone meal, putting up the finishing touches with a few trees. Next episode, we're going to be finishing off that Alchemist's Tower and then hitting the tavern. Now, this is going to be a lively, bustling tavern, not like the one on the docks in the city. This is going to be the focus point for our village. This is going to be where all the travellers stop in, check in, get a room, and stay for the night. So I've been Sjin. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Let's Build. Stay tuned because next week we're hitting the Alchemist's Tower and the tavern, and I hope you guys enjoy what we do with that. So take care, like and favourite if you want to see more, and I'll hopefully see you guys next time. Take care.